Welcome, welcome to the Conjure Room. I am so excited that you are here. Okay, great. We're live over there as well. So, welcome to the Conjure Room for this week's Conjure Conversation. And I'm calling it the Conjure Room because this is where we are connecting with the ancestors, receiving guidance, support, wisdom, even maybe some rituals every now and then, and some spiritual practices, some meditations. All of that'll be right here in the room. So, welcome. Before we begin, I would like to invite our ancestors to be present with us in this moment. If you have an ancestor that you would like to be a part of this discussion today, if you'd like to tap into this ancestor, if you want this ancestor's wisdom to walk with you today and the days ahead, then go ahead and put their name, excuse me, in the chat. Just pop their name in the chat. Who is it that you want to invite today? I'm going to invite my dad and my Uncle James, and my grandmothers, of course, always. So whoever you would like to invite, feel free to put their name in the chat. Your dad, George, okay? It would have been his 91st birthday. Happy heavenly birthday, Dad George. Wonderful. Beautiful. I love it. Who else do we want to pop in the chat? Who else do you want? For those of you who are on Facebook, I'm not actually trying to manage that chat right now, but put their names in there anyway, because that means that they are joining us. And it can even be, if you're listening to the replay, that's okay. Just put the name in anyway. Invite them to join you. Your father and grandfather and your grandmothers. Yes, yes, important. All of those people are important for us to include as we are honoring the ancestors and inviting their wisdom and their guidance into our lives. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. So today I'm going to talk about something I believe that many women experience when their work is starting to change, when something is deepening, something is asking more of them. Something is shifting. Something meaningful is beginning to emerge. You feel it, but you're having a hard time identifying it. You're having a hard time naming it. You're not necessarily fully trusting the guidance that's coming through. It's there, it's always there, but maybe you're not trusting it to actually come through. And then sometimes it really makes it hard to shape it. It makes it hard for you to really know exactly what it is because there's an interference. There's something there that is keeping you from actually receiving the guidance fully and trusting it. And sometimes when that happens, we begin to assume that there's a problem, that guidance isn't there, that we just need more clarity, or we need another class, or we need another certification, or we need to talk to somebody else, or for some people, maybe we just need to give it up altogether. That happens too. And I don't want you to do that because the guidance is there, the information is there, the wisdom is there, and there is a way for you to become clear about what's emerging. And when I say that, I don't just mean people who are maybe starting something new. It could very well be you've been a seasoned business owner and now something else is coming through for you. It could be that you're retiring and you know that there's something more that you want to offer the world, and you know it's there, but you can't quite identify what it is. Or maybe you're a leader in some way and you know that there's some new way of doing your work and the way you lead and who you lead that's coming through, and you're just not quite sure what it is. This is the place for you to be because that's what we're going to talk about today. Because we know that guidance is there, but there's something interfering with it. And that's when I talk to many, many women around the world. I hear the same thing. I'm not sure that I'm receiving the guidance. I don't know that my ancestors are talking to me. For some reason, I can't tune in with my spirit guides. Well, I'm getting these messages, but I'm not sure if they're really for me or they're mine. And what that is interference. Something is interfering, and you're having a difficult time really hearing it, trusting it, and acting on it, which is another important point. Sometimes we hear it, we may not trust it, and we don't act on it. And those are things that we need to change and shift. We'll talk about that today. So, in my work, I see this over and over. When a woman is struggling to identify what's emerging for her, it doesn't always mean that she lacks the gifts. It doesn't always mean you're off path. It doesn't mean that you're not ready. Sometimes it means that there's a story underneath the surface distracting you. It's distorting the signal that is trying to come through for you to help you know exactly what you're here to do. And oftentimes, that story did not begin with you. That story is ancestral, it's inherited, it's epigenetic, and it's a pattern that has lived in your bloodline long enough that it begins to feel normal. And when I say long enough, it can be passed down for multiple generations. And now it just shows up as a normal way of making decisions, of living your life, of walking in your body. So just because it's familiar, it doesn't mean that it's actually true. It means that it has become the norm. Let's talk about what are the ancestral stories that I work with that I know begin to interfere with clarity, with guidance, with our intuition, with how we relate to people, and how we make decisions. Because these stories begin to interfere with our clarity, our visibility, our discernment, our direction, our expression, and really how this work takes shape. So today, these stories that we are going to focus on are fear, scarcity, and shame. But let me tell you, there are 5 others that show up as well. And in future discussions, we're going to talk about the other 5 and how they show up in your life as well. But I'll just go ahead and share with you all of them: abandonment, anger, abuse, betrayal, fear, grief, scarcity, and shame. Those all play a part in how you use those natural gifts that are wanting to flow through you. And as I said, today we're going to focus on just 3 of them: fear, scarcity, and shame. And I selected these 3 for today because these are the 3 that really show up when something is starting to emerge for you. These are the 3 that really start to guide how you're receiving the messages. And they really interfere even with how you're acting on them. So because they show up often, they can distort the signal in a variety of ways. And I'm going to talk about each one of them. So let's talk about fear. Let's talk about fear. And let's talk a little bit about where that fear can come from. Ancestral fear can be a situation where your ancestors experienced fear of death, a fear of being in poverty, a fear of war, a fear of famine, a fear of not having enough. Fear can show up in a variety of ways, and then that fear is passed down. Another way fear can show up: if you had ancestors that were healers, shaman, midwives, medicine men and women, herbalists, that were seers, that experienced abandonment, rejection, those ancestors carry a fear. And when they carry that fear actually starts to manifest throughout the entire lineage. And that fear can show up in different ways for different people, even different people within the same family, with the same blood. That fear can show up differently. But when it shows up in our work, it blocks us. And it makes guidance feel dangerous. And oftentimes that's your ancestors protecting you. They want to be sure that you don't experience some of the same things that they experienced. So when we're really wanting their guidance, we have to work on clearing that fear so that we can receive the guidance from the ancestors that have the wisdom that help us naturally use the gifts that have been passed down to us. And we have to clear the fear because that fear is creating some interferences in our own life. Because what I found is oftentimes women are feeling that nudge. They're feeling the clear nudge. They're getting clear instructions. They're a clear sense of something that your work needs to change, or maybe it needs to deepen, or there's something getting ready to come forward. But then that fear kicks in. And it may not be even from, like I said before, from your own personal experiences. It could be something that happened somewhere along the way in your family lineage. And then it kicks in and it tells you, don't do that. That's too risky. That's too uncertain. What if I get it wrong? And what if people don't really understand what it is that I'm offering? And when you start having those thoughts, it interferes with you being able to receive the signal from the ancestors that are healthy, healed, and whole, that have the medicine and the gifts that they want to share with you. It also makes it difficult for you to trust it when it comes through. So therefore, it doesn't mean that the guidance is absent. It just means that there's some fear that's interfering with it. Now, this could be fear that you've also experienced. Maybe you have experienced some judgment and now you're a little fearful of taking that next step. And if there's underlying ancestral fear that's underneath that, then it makes it even more difficult to take that step. And that's why clearing and healing those stories that your ancestors have experienced around fear is very helpful for you having the courage and the ability to take that step forward and to hear the guidance that's coming through. Well, some of you already know more than you're admitting. You have it in you, but you may not be sharing it with people. It's amazing the number of women that I meet with, and they start just sharing with me about their spiritual experiences and what's coming through. And these are things that they have feared sharing with anyone else, or maybe they shared them at some point and they were rejected or ridiculed or judged, and so they've closed them off. Fear has made it really hard to trust what you know when you've had that experience. So fear is our first one. Now let's talk about scarcity. Most people are pretty familiar with this one. Scarcity. Scarcity has a way of making you feel loyal and stay loyal to what no longer fits because it feels safer than the unknown. It feels safer than the unknown. Now, scarcity can happen when your ancestors may have experienced a famine, may have experienced a loss of land, may have experienced a lack of water, a lack of something, a lack of love, even. Doesn't necessarily have to just be money, but it could be a lack of love. It could be a lack of money. It could be a lack of resources, a lack of opportunities. When scarcity shows up, it prevents us from being able to take some of those new steps because we're afraid that there won't be enough. And our ancestors may even be protecting us, saying, well, wait a minute, you have a lot right now. Maybe you should just stop. Whether you do have a lot or not, in your mind, what you're getting is that protection from the ancestors to not step forward. What we need to do is work with those ancestors that have experienced scarcity, have a conversation with them, talk to them, let them know that we're okay, offer the healing, invite the ancestors who are already healthy, healed, and whole to work with these ancestors to release this scarcity feeling. Because when we make decisions from scarcity, then we're not able to fully express the gifts that are coming through to us. And that's why I say scarcity doesn't always show up as money. It can sound like there's not enough room for my work. We hear that a lot. Oh, well, there's so many people that are doing this work, and I see it all the time, and there's not enough room for my work. That's scarcity showing up. That's the ancestral story. Not enough support, ancestral story. Not enough time. Now, I realize that we may be limited in time, but there's still something you can do. And when I say time, I mean the amount of hours in the day. Or sometimes people feel like, you know what, I'm towards the end of my life. I don't have enough time. You absolutely do. I have a client who's 80 years old, took a new training and became certified in the work that she does, and now she is doing it. I have another client, same thing. She's in her 70s and she wrote a book. I know another woman who was in her late 70s, late 70s, early 80s, and went back to school because she wanted to get an advanced nursing degree. There is always going to be enough time, but now's the time to not wait. Sometimes people feel like there isn't enough proof and that they should stay what already makes sense. So even when something more aligned is trying to emerge, scarcity keeps pulling you back toward what feels familiar. Scarcity can make the old path feel safer than the true one. And that's how women stay in work that no longer reflects who they are becoming. And I see that all too often. That scarcity shows up, the fear shows up, the fear that there's not going to be enough shows up, and then we stay where we are. When we heal those stories, it helps us have the confidence, the courage. It helps us to manifest abundance so much easier when those scarcity stories are gone. And when I say abundance, I don't just mean money, I mean the abundance of opportunity, the abundance of people that will come in and support you. So, scarcity is one of the stories that we need to heal, clear, release, let go. Not only personally, but ancestrally. Okay, the last one is shame. And shame is kind of a quiet one. And sometimes shame can sound like, who am I to say this? Who am I to lead this? Who am I to do this? Who am I to really name this work as mine? And maybe I should make it just a little smaller so that it doesn't seem like I am, think I'm all that. I've heard the women say that. Or maybe I should stay in it in a more acceptable way. You have these spiritual gifts, but I'm going to not let people know about it. I'm just going to do it this way. So people don't really completely know what's showing up for me. And shame can make you question the very thing that is trying to emerge through you. It can interfere with like your expression. It softens your voice sometimes, making you hide the depth of your work. And basically, shame, which was interesting because when I first started really working with the ancestral stories, I didn't include shame as one of them until I started working with women worldwide and listening to them tell me what they felt was causing a block or interference or some type of disruption in their life. That's when I realized that shame was playing a big part in how women show up. And your ancestors may have experienced shame if they felt that they couldn't fully be and express who they are out of fear, out of scarcity. You see how all of these kind of relate to one another. Your ancestors didn't feel like they could be seen. Shame impacts our visibility as well. So shame is a big one. And I didn't realize that, like I said, initially. And then when I did a study to see which one of these karmic stories or what were the top karmic stories, I was surprised that scarcity was lower than shame. Shame is a big one. So sometimes with shame, the message is unclear because it's being filtered through shame. And we need to heal that. What I want you to hear about this today, this is important. If something meaningful is emerging in your work right now, and it still feels hard to identify, feels hard to trust, it feels hard to shape it, that doesn't mean that you are incapable of doing the work. That doesn't mean that you got something wrong or that, and it doesn't mean that the guidance isn't there and the support isn't there. It just means that there's an ancestral story that's interfering with the signal. And in most cases, there's more than one ancestral story that's interfering with that signal. Therefore, the guidance isn't missing. That's not the problem. The problem is the story is often louder than the guidance. And when that story is louder than the guidance, it causes you to listen to the story and allow the story to lead and not the guidance that's coming through. It causes you to dismiss that guidance. I've done it. If you've ever dismissed the guidance, let's say you got a message or something that came through, and for some reason you just didn't listen, put a yes in the comments. It came through, but you just didn't quite listen. You didn't trust it. You didn't trust it. Yes. Right. I think all of us have been there, and there's a variety of reasons why that happens. These karmic stories or ancestral stories, as I call them now, these ancestral stories oftentimes are what causes us not to trust it or to fully believe that it's there and that it really is guidance coming through, because sometimes we think it's something else. Sometimes we think it's, external noise that's going on. Yes, absolutely. So that does happen quite often that we just don't follow it. Once the story is identified, that's when things begin to change. That's when you see a shift starting to take place. And I've seen this in many, many women. Now, I'm talking a lot about the work and the gifts that are ready to flow through you, the things that are emerging for you. But when we clear these stories, they also help our relationships. They help with our abundance. They help us manifest easier. They help us experience more joy and make decisions from a different place. When we clear these stories, you begin to understand why certain decisions have felt really hard for you. You understand why visibility has felt fully loaded for you and maybe has stopped you from wanting to step forward. You begin to understand why the work keeps pressing on, but still feels really difficult for you to claim it. You're just still not quite sure what it is. And you begin to understand why the clarity kind of goes in and out. You feel clear and then suddenly you don't. You feel a little bit of clarity and suddenly you don't. Those are ancestral stories that are playing in the background. And when the interference is clearer, the signal can come through more cleanly. And that's where the clarity that you need begins to deepen. Not because someone handed you a formula, the perfect formula, but because you can finally see what has been distorting what you already know. When those stories are clear, you can see it. It's easier to recognize. It is so powerful when we acknowledge that these stories are existing And what happens when a client comes to work with me, I ask them to identify what are the stories out of that list that you feel are showing up in your life. And then I work with the ancestors to find out which ones they feel are showing up. Sometimes there is a perfect match, and sometimes there's a little bit of a mismatch that happens. Then we work with the ancestors to find out, where did the story originate? How has it been showing up in the family lineage? Who are the ancestors we need to work with to heal this story? And how do we make decisions from there that are not based on that story? And we do the healing work. And the healing work happens within the sessions, but it also happens outside. The ancestors give you rituals, practices, things to do, things to say, how to be, what to do when you wake up in the morning, what to say throughout the day, how to communicate, who to communicate with, which ancestors are ready to communicate with you, ways in which they can communicate with you that help you become clear about what's coming through. And they help you to heal those stories. And as we all know, when we heal those ancestral stories, it impacts us and future generations. When we do this work, we're not only doing it for ourselves, we're also helping current and future generations. And some of those are people you may not even know that you're helping as well. And when we clear those stories, that work that is trying to emerge, those ancestral gifts and medicine that are trying to come through, we begin to be able to feel them and experience them in a way that we never have before. And that's what makes it so powerful. I want to leave you with a few questions. What if the guidance is already there? What if the issue is not that you're unclear, but that something inherited is interfering with how clearly you receive and trust what is coming through? What if that's the case for you? And I want to know if you want to share it. You don't have to share, but if you want to share in the comments, because I'm always interested to see which stories are coming up. There's no reason to feel like, oh, I can't share these, because trust me, I have never worked with anyone that hasn't had at least 3 or 4 of the karmic stories, the ancestral stories that I talk about. I have never seen anyone that didn't have at least 3 or 4. Most of the time, there's 5, 6. Some people, it's all 8. I want you to think a minute about the stories that we talked about: fear, scarcity, shame. Are any of those showing up for you right now? You can either tell me which ones, or you can just say yes, or you can say no. Maybe they aren't. Maybe it's something else. And if it's something else and you want to name it, go ahead and name it. But what might be interfering right now with you fully stepping into what is emerging inside of you, even if you're not able to identify it yet? What's stopping you from receiving the guidance from coming through? Or maybe the guidance is coming through, but you're not trusting it. Which one of these is showing up for you? And then I want you to think a little bit about what might change if you stop trying to force more clarity. What might change if you start to just not try to force it, and you start identifying with what is interfering with it? What are the stories that are interfering with it? And also remember, oftentimes we can be really hard on ourselves when these stories, the fear, scarcity, and shame come up. But I want you to remember that if those stories are a part of your family lineage, they become even more difficult for you to overcome. The fear becomes intensified. The scarcity becomes a part of your experience. The shame becomes a part of how you navigate through life. But it can stop. It doesn't have to stay there. So Some of those may be showing up for you, some of them may not, but if they are, feel free to share. This is the deeper work that I do inside of Conjure Sovereignty. And I've talked about Conjure Sovereignty before and how it includes your lineage medicine. In Conjure Sovereignty, we identify what is emerging in your work, what is coming through right now that you're having a hard time identifying. We look at what are the ancestral stories that are interfering with this expression. What are they? And we heal them. And who are the ancestors that are ready to connect with you to support you to heal them? We strengthen your relationship with the guidance from your ancestors and your spiritual team that are ready to support you. We identify who are those ancestors that hold the lineage gifts and medicine that want to share them with you and help you to perfect them and cultivate them and refine them in the way that has been going on through multiple generations in your family lineage. And then we shape the work in a way that is aligned with who you are now. And we clearly identify what ancestral gifts, medicines have been refined and cultivated. Like I said, those are important. So that's why I want to say it again. We identify what ancestral gifts and medicines have been refined and cultivated by your lineage and want to come through you now. And that is what we call lineage medicine. If you're interested in learning more about Conjure Sovereignty, all you have to do is send me a DM if you want, or send an email. For those of you who received an email from me, send me an email and let me know that you're interested in learning more about it. And I'll be more than happy to share with you how we do this work together to help you uncover what's emerging and create something that's uniquely yours, that is something that helps you stand out in your work. We help you uncover what are those stories that are holding you back. So yes, let me know if that's something you want to do. And what I know is that something meaningful is coming through you. I'm seeing it all the time. We are in a time right now where we need women to step into their ancestral power. We need women to embrace those ancestral gifts and medicines that have been refined, cultivated, perfected through multiple generations that are ready to just naturally flow through you so that you can share powerful work with others in the world. We need that right now. This is the time. The ancestresses in our family lineage are rising to help us. I hear from them all the time saying we're rising, we're helping, we're supporting. They're there. And now is the time to actually step into this. So the question right now isn't about what isn't there. It really is about what is there that's coming through, because it is. You may not hear it, you may not feel it, but it's coming through. And what I know is when you're being called to do something different, something new, and something is emerging, when your soul is feeling that call, it starts initially with a nudge, and then it gets louder and louder and louder until you can't miss it anymore. And that's what's happening now. The message is getting louder and louder. Join me next week in the Conjure Room. If you've enjoyed and received anything from this today, next week, we're going to have a conversation that will talk even more about what's emerging for you and the ancestral stories that are interfering with the guidance that you need. We'll talk a little bit more about some of those other stories and how they show up for you as well. But before we go, I want to take us on just a little brief healing. I want you to pick one of those stories: fear, scarcity, shame. Pick one of those now. Decide which one is coming through for you more than the other, even if it's just a little bit. And then take a moment to just close your eyes and take a deep breath. And I want you to visualize a sign in your hand with that word, with that ancestral story on it. Feel it, look at it. It's right there. And you'll notice that there's a white light in front of you. And that white light begins to clear and it opens you up to a pathway. And you step onto the pathway with that sign in your hand: fear, scarcity, or shame. And the ancestresses begin to line the walkway. And as you walk down the walkway, each one of them joins in behind you, on the side of you, and walks with you. And you walk to a footbridge, and all of your ancestresses that are with you now walk with you over this footbridge. It's short. It just crosses a body of healing water. You have your sign in your hand. Your ancestresses guide you to a beautiful body of water. It's the most beautiful water you've ever seen. It's sparkling, it's warm, it's clear, it's turquoise blue. And in the water is a big, big amethyst crystal, the biggest amethyst crystal you have ever seen in your entire life. And that crystal is working like a magnet. And that crystal is ready to receive this ancestral story. And you and your ancestresses walk into the water, and you go as far as you feel comfortable. For some, that may be all the way out until you're treading water. For some, it may be just putting your feet in. For others, it may be up to your waist. Whatever feels comfortable for you, you step into this beautiful water, feeling safe. And as you step in, you can feel the stress, the confusion, the chaos, the lack of clarity. You feel it begin to release from your body and go into the crystal. And now this crystal becomes even more powerful. And the crystal is ready to receive this ancestral story that you are carrying. And your ancestresses are ready to support you with delivering it and releasing it for the entire lineage. And you release this sign into the water and it floats over to the crystal. And the crystal dissolves it. You and your ancestresses feel this relief that this story has been released. And you just allow it to be for a moment, allowing it to float away, thinking about any of your own stories and experiences that you've had that relate to this ancestral story. And now you allow those to dissolve into the water and be received by the crystal. And this crystal begins to dissolve these stories. And you take a deep breath in and you just express gratitude for the beautiful healing waters, for the crystal, and for the ancestresses that have joined you in this release. And now your ancestresses guide you back out of the water where you feel at peace. You feel lighter. And your ancestresses let you know that they are with you, they are supporting you, and that story is starting to release. And one of the ancestresses, she gives you a gift to remind you that this story is dissolving and that your ancestresses will support you to continue to release this ancestral story. There may still be deeper work to do, and that's okay. But the first level is releasing, and that will give you some relief. And now your ancestresses walk you back to the footbridge. You turn and you say goodbye as you walk over the bridge, knowing you can come back anytime. And they stay on the healing side of the bridge. And they send you off over the footbridge, back into the light, back into the present moment, feeling guided, supported, and lighter. And when you're ready, come back into the present moment. And just move around a little bit. And if you'd like to share what the gift was that you received, I'd love to know what it is. You can either pop it in the comments or you can write it here in the comments here on Zoom. Once again, I invite you to come back and join me again next Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Pacific time, 4:30 p.m. Eastern time for another Conjure Conversations in the Conjure Room, where we receive guidance, support, and wisdom from the ancestors to help you on your path and your journey. Thank you again for being here. For those of you who are on Zoom, please stay. We'll have a little Q&A afterwards. You can ask questions. If you are listening on Zoom or excuse me, on Facebook, or you're listening to the replay, if you want to be a part of the Zoom room, you can. You can basically just type Zoom in the comments and I will come back and make sure that you have the link for our next Conjure Conversation in the Conjure Room next Wednesday and have a link so that, like I said, you can join us there. Thank you again for being here today, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye for now.